I wrote this book, I wanted to understand my mother.
Treated like a cultural moment. Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel had found a massive audience, particularly among younger women, and the story's emotional weight focused on trauma, love, and survival made it feel urgent and timely. Justin Baldoni, who had directed projects like 5 Feet Apart, secured the rights and was set to direct and co-produce. He had built a reputation as someone who wanted to tell human stories that helped people heal. He also co-founded Wayfarer Studios, which was connected to his nonprofit work through the Wayfarer Foundation. Blake Lively, meanwhile, was cast as Lily Bloom, the central character. It was a significant return to the screen for Lively, who had taken time away from acting. Fans were surprised by the casting, but many were hopeful. Lively had the star power. Baldoni had the vision. It all looked like a Hollywood dream. But it didn't take long for the dream to fall apart. Tensions on set were growing early. Behind the scenes, the creative dynamic between Lively and Baldoni was not working smoothly. According to several people familiar with the production, there were quiet disagreements about the tone of the movie. Baldoni wanted a stripped-down, emotionally raw adaptation that stayed close to the book's serious themes. Lively wanted Lily to feel stronger, more polished, less defeated. She reportedly had notes on the wardrobe, the characters' dialogue, and even the cinematography. Things became more complicated when Lively received executive producer credit. This gave her a say in how the final product looked and felt. It also meant that she could legally request to be part of the editing process. At first there was back and forth. Then there was radio silence. They weren't speaking directly anymore, said a crew member. It was all through assistants and lawyers. At that point the film had already been shot, but post-production became a battlefield. One insider said the studio went through 5 major edits. Each cut seemed to reflect a different vision of the movie. Meanwhile, rumors began circulating that Blake Lively had made her own cut of the film and was showing it to people in private. Wayfarer Studios filed a legal motion in Los Angeles County Court. The filing was quiet, but it raised eyebrows. It included a request to stop any unauthorized footage from being leaked or distributed. Attached to that request were claims that someone had edited the film without approval and was threatening to share it online. The document didn't name anyone, but people in the industry quickly figured out who it pointed to. Blake Lively's name wasn't in the legal
exists out there. Lay them out. Put them on a website for the world to see. Have them see the truth and determine.
The public finally realized something was very wrong. The internet exploded with takes. Fans took sides. Some blamed Justin Baldoni for trying to control the film too tightly. Others accused Blake Lively of overstepping and trying to rewrite a story that didn't belong to her. The project that had once been a guaranteed hit was now a war zone. Then came the subpoenas. Lively's legal team filed a counterclaim accusing Wayfarer Studios of retaliation and contract violations. They issued subpoenas to production staff and others who had been part of the editing process. Most shocking of all, Lively's legal team included Taylor Swift in the subpoenas. She had apparently attended a private screening and had text messages and voice notes that could serve as evidence. Baldoni's side responded by subpoenaing Ryan Reynolds. He had visited the set several times and was reportedly present during a major behind-the-scenes confrontation. Now the conflict wasn't just about a film, it had spilled into the personal lives of 2 of Hollywood's biggest names.
Watching a film like this, you can't help but put yourself in that scenario because it's one person and it's apex predator versus apex predator.
Between 2 people who were never even married. What made it worse was the number of internal leaks. Confidential emails and production memos began appearing in the press. These documents painted a grim picture of a deeply divided team. One leaked email quoted Lively as saying, "I don't need to be told how to play trauma by someone who's never lived it." The editor she was speaking to had worked with Baldoni for years. Another message reportedly from Baldoni read, "She's not just acting, she's producing chaos." As the legal and media battle escalated, the damage began to spread in unexpected directions. One of the biggest shocks was the effect it had on the Wayfarer Foundation, a nonprofit Baldoni had helped build. Known for its work in mental health and social justice, the foundation had been seen as a rare example of a celebrity-backed organization actually doing real work. Now it was suddenly at the center of a legal and public relations disaster. Donors started backing out. Volunteers stopped showing up. Rumors began circulating that funds from the foundation were being used to support the legal battle. No proof ever surfaced, but the rumors were enough to cause serious harm. Board members resigned, sponsors canceled partnerships. The foundation quietly paused operations. What had started as a hopeful film project had now torched one of the more respected philanthropic names in the industry. Things only got worse when the violence started. At the Wayfarer Foundation's Los Angeles office, a trash can caught fire in the early morning hours. At first it was treated as an accident. But within a week, anonymous tips suggested it had been intentional. Some reports suggested that the person responsible had connections to the production. No one was arrested, but the incident triggered an internal investigation and a full shutdown of the office. Then came something more disturbing. One of the production assistants reported a kidnapping threat. Details were vague, but the threat was taken seriously enough for private security to be hired and the LAPD to be alerted. Both Lively and Baldoni stopped making public appearances. Their social media accounts went dark. Fans, once divided by opinion, now seemed genuinely worried. The film remained unreleased. Marketing was frozen. Lionsgate executives refused to comment. The only thing that was still moving forward was the lawsuit. Colleen Hoover issued a short statement. "I trusted this team with a deeply personal story," she wrote. "I never imagined it would become this." By the end of the year, it was clear that this situation had spun out of anyone's control. The fallout from the legal battle had reached far beyond the courtroom. Careers were hanging by a thread. Reputations were under siege. And everyone involved was either lawyering up or leaking evidence. This wasn't just a movie problem anymore. It was a disaster spreading through Hollywood in every direction, and no one knew how to stop it. By the time the legal documents became public, there was already too much damage done behind closed doors. But the release of those filings turned a behind-the-scenes creative disagreement into a high-profile scandal. The court documents were detailed, surprisingly personal, and filled with accusations that seemed to blur the lines between professional conflict and emotional warfare. The public got its first clear look at what Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni were really accusing each other of, and it was uglier than anyone expected. One of the documents filed by Wayfarer Studios accused an unnamed producer of interfering with the editing process, breaching the agreed-upon post-production schedule, and creating a toxic environment that delayed the film's completion. Attached to the document were references to unauthorized alternate cuts, private screenings held without studio consent, and tampering with contractual creative guidelines. The anonymous references didn't stay anonymous for long. Entertainment. Journalists and legal analysts began piecing things together, and before the end of the week, it was common knowledge that Blake Lively was the producer being referred to. She had screened her version of the film privately to close friends and industry contacts, which Baldoni's camp said violated terms of her contract. The situation escalated quickly. Lively's legal team responded with a counterclaim that reframed the conflict entirely. According to her filing, she had every right to be involved in the final edit of the film. She claimed that Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios had tried to shut her out of the editing process, cut her characters' most emotional scenes, and undermine her credibility as a producer. She also alleged that Baldoni's team spread false information about her to the media and industry insiders in an attempt to make her seem unprofessional and unstable. It was more than just a battle over film rights. This was about reputations, egos, and control. One of the biggest shockwaves came from Lively's decision to subpoena Taylor Swift. The court filings stated that Swift had been shown one of the unreleased cuts of the film and had exchanged text messages and voice notes with Lively about the edit. While there was no accusation that Swift did anything wrong, the documents argued that her communications with Lively could prove that the studio was aware of the alternate version and had not objected at the time. The internet exploded. Taylor Swift, who had long stayed out of legal controversies involving her close friends, now found her name mentioned in court. Fans debated whether this was a betrayal of Swift's privacy or a desperate legal move. Swift did not comment publicly, but sources close to her said she was surprised and upset to be dragged into this situation. That was just the beginning. Justin Baldoni's legal team filed a list of their own subpoenas, and at the top of that list was Ryan Reynolds. Had visited the set multiple times and, according to documents, had been present during a confrontation between Lively and a post-production Supervisor: the fallout from the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni legal war over their film adaptation of It Ends With Us became one of Hollywood's most shocking controversies. What began as a passionate creative project quickly spiraled into legal threats. A Shudder nonprofit leaked documents, conspiracy theories, and serious safety concerns. Originally, the film was seen as a meaningful adaptation of Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel, a story centered on trauma survival and emotional healing. Both Lively and Baldoni were deeply invested. Lively starred and co-produced, while Baldoni directed and co-produced through his company Wayfarer Studios. But their collaboration didn't last. Creative disagreements intensified during post-production. Lively allegedly pushed for reshoots to make the protagonist more composed and the trauma less severe, while Baldoni insisted on preserving the novel's raw emotional edge. This disagreement escalated into a legal battle. Documents revealed heated disputes, with both sides accusing each other of interference and mismanagement. At one point, Baldoni claimed Lively's husband Ryan Reynolds had witnessed a key confrontation and could be a potential witness. Media outlets published conflicting reports filled with leaked texts, anonymous tips, and partial email chains. One leak showed Baldoni saying the project no longer reflected his original vision. Another showed Lively pushing for a version that was more empowering for her character. As sides formed, editors described chaos behind the scenes. Two versions of the film were being edited simultaneously. Wayfarer Foundation, Baldoni's nonprofit, got caught in the crossfire. Once respected for its work on mental health and social justice, the foundation faced intense scrutiny after an anonymous 27-page report alleged misuse of resources and staff resignations linked to the film's fallout. Donations vanished, events were canceled. A youth summit was scrapped. Eventually, the foundation quietly shut down. Then the situation turned darker. A trash can fire at Wayfarer's office was ruled suspicious. Security footage showed a hooded figure entering the alley moments before the fire. Not long after, a post-production assistant received threatening messages, including one that referenced kidnapping. One message read, "People disappear in Los Angeles, especially those who don't keep their mouths shut." The LAPD and FBI got involved. Security was tightened. Both stars hired private protection and disappeared from public view. TikTok theories, Reddit investigations, and conspiracy threads overtook social media. Fans debated whether the film was cursed. Unverified footage leaked online. One scene depicted Lily confronting her abuser in a bold, composed manner. Viewers couldn't agree whether it was Lively's version or Baldoni's. The leak added confusion and tension as the studio scrambled to issue takedowns and trace the source. Even Colleen Hoover withdrew, with sources claiming she regretted selling the rights. Rumors spread that she was canceling the sequel's adaptation. Taylor Swift unfollowed both stars. Ryan Reynolds made cryptic comments. Cast and crew removed. Posts, public support vanished. Internal investigations uncovered that one threatening message had come from a burner phone purchase with a Wayfarer credit card, allegedly a fraudulent charge, but the damage was done. Former donors demanded transparency. One high-level staffer resigned over ethical concerns, accusing the foundation of being a shield for celebrity reputations. Hollywood insiders called this a turning point. Studios introduced what became known as Lively clauses, restricting actor-producers from holding post-production authority without studio oversight. Contracts were restructured across the industry. Both versions of the film remained unreleased. A clause in Hoover's original agreement allowed her to revoke rights if the film reached a state of irreparable dispute. There were rumors that both versions would be destroyed to protect the integrity of the original story. Lionsgate issued a statement confirming it would not proceed with distribution. The consequences were unprecedented. A promising film about healing caused lasting damage to careers, reputations, and an entire nonprofit. Fan communities fractured. Former staff reported harassment. Creators left the industry. What began as a creative disagreement had become a cautionary tale about ego, power, and the volatility of fame. In the end, the film was never released. The stars went silent. Wayfarer ceased to exist. And Hollywood was left with a blueprint of what not to do. The story that was supposed to end with love and redemption instead ended with ruin, and the lesson that not all stories are meant to be told, especially when the cost is everything around them.